Howdy guys, I'm Apollo8, your favorite wolf girl enthusiast, and welcome to a bit of a different type of video. This one is an interesting one, that's for sure. Recently I was approached by Danny Doyle and asked if I would like to take part in a little, I suppose, sister video to her video on what she would do if Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones units had personal skills. And I have personally went ahead and done the same. As I said, you can consider this video a companion piece to her video. It will be linked in the description as well as in the end card of this video. And if I know my YouTube stuff and can get it working, then up here in the corner in the card. Hopefully that'll work out. This is a largely unscripted video, though I do have some visual pointers for myself to sort of get things in order. Obviously, I wrote out what skills I would give to units, so I know what I'm getting into. More or less, the way that this is going to work is that I've split up the units into categories based on their promotions, both based on their promotion items, I should say. And then, you know, of course, units that don't have promotion items, you know, the Lords, the Dancer, the Dragon, they're going to be at the beginning, and at the end, we have also decided to include the creature campaign units, so it should be a lot of fun. And I suppose that I should explain my thought process on making some of these personal skills before we get into it. Essentially, the way that I've decided to go about this is with a few rules in mind, so to say. The only main rule that I have is that as the game progresses, the unit skills should get a little bit more intense. Maybe not necessarily better, but they should have additional effects just to keep everything a little bit interesting. In terms of balance, whether between characters or between or with the game itself, I don't have any threshold for that. I don't really care, honestly. I just wanted to make skills that were cool and fun in a theoretical sense, so to say. I'm not personally big on skills in GBA Fire Emblem as it is, but I would be very happy to see most of these skills applied somewhere, somehow. And in all honesty, there's a good chance that I will apply some of these in my own projects. Like I was saying, some of these skills are going to be a little bit insane, some of them are going to be absolutely broken by every metric, and some of them are going to be a little bit underwhelming by comparison to the rest. That said, I think every single unit got something pretty cool here, so do let me know in the comments what you think your favorite one of these is, and do let me know if you think you had a better idea than what I had. And also, like I said, go ahead, open up Danny's video in another tab, give hers a watch after you watch mine, and see who you think gave better skills or more fun skills, or I don't know, just which ones you like the best. So with that out of the way, I suppose we'll go ahead and get into it. I should also say, I apologize if the audio fluctuates here and there. I am recovering from being sick, so my voice is a little bit all over the place. That aside, we'll go ahead and start with the special units, the Lords and the two units who can't promote, being Tethys and Myrrh. So here's the first one. We've got Erica. Also, I have given every skill a name just for the fun of it. I mean, you can't have skills without names. That's part of the fun. So I've given Erica Resolved Heart. Once per map, she can choose to pierce a foe's defense, that is pierced down to 0 like the GBA pierce by default. She can do this one additional time after promotion. I essentially gave her the ability to choose at will, like a menu option, to proc pierce. And I think that would be a lot of fun. It kind of plays into Ephraim as well with the whole sun and moon siblings type deal. I'm sure it's not a very original idea or anything, but it should be pretty interesting to play around this given the opportunity. I am going to be speaking as if these things exist in the game, by the way, as if you do have these options and as if you can play around them, just because I think it's more fun that way. But when you get to do this, you know, obviously foes defense reduced down to 0. The reason that I particularly wanted this one to come into play was because I think it's a lot of fun to use effective weapons in general. I guess in this case, possibly even against generals, and use things like that to their greatest effect. So, I mean, you get to throw around your rapier against some armor knights for some big damage. It's going to be a lot of fun. She'll probably get to one round the chapter 1 knight boss Brigade. Probably be pretty nice. Anyway, moving on into Ephraim. I have given Ephraim the skill Resolute Heart, kind of playing off a naming theme with Erica, her brother, and eventually you'll see their father with the restoration, like RES type naming theme, but whatever, that's aside from the point. Ephraim has Resolute Heart. Once per map, this unit can choose to heal for the damage he deals to a foe one time. He can do this one additional time after promotion. Like I said, not a super inspired skill or anything, but in particular with Ephraim, I needed this one to be a sort of proc-based and not just giving him soul, because soul in FE8 would be kind of insane on Ephraim. You just drop him somewhere with a javelin, and then what do they do about it? He stands there, he wins. Simple as that. So It is a little bit nerfed for him. Erica's is a little bit buffed for her by contrast, but that's part of the fun, you know. Now moving on over to our dancer, Tethys. Obviously it's a bit weird to see her up here with the lords, but like I said, I'm basing these off of promotion item and such. So here she is. I've given her Spirited Steps. She's got a level % chance to Gale Force after dancing. Also probably not very original, but seems like it'd be a lot of fun. In addition to that, her level % chance is increased by 5% per support level that she has with the given ally. So she's got her support partners. If she's got a support level with them, I'll take for example Garrick. Let's say she's got an A rank support with Garrick. She gets a plus 15% chance to Gale Force after dancing. So at max, with her support partners maxed out or whatever, she would have up to 35% chance, 20% with anybody at all at level 20, and then up until that point, you know, it increases with time as she levels up. I guess the strategy at a certain point would be to, in the chapter that you get her, just spam level or spam dance until she's level 20, but assuming that you don't do something like that, you'll probably only see a couple Gale Forces here and there, and when you do, you'll pop off. So that's kind of what I thought would be the fun in that. And then we'll move on over to our Greatest Dragon Myr. Yes, indeed, that is the skill that I've given her, Greatest Dragon. And this one should prove to be a lot of fun. She gains effectiveness versus all foes that are weak to dragon effectiveness. Now, this only actually really applies to wyverns, wyvern lords, things of this nature. And that's only actually an issue for one map after you get her, but the secondary effect of that should come into play quite nicely. After defeating foes that are weak to dragon effectiveness, we restore her Dragonstone to full uses. So essentially the way that this could play out for you, if you know the game prior to playing, is that you can simply use her to your heart's content in the Orson map, and then following that, in the river map, the River of Regrets, Narube River, you can use her to defeat some of the dragons up top in the left. If you do that, she'll get her Dragonstone back to full uses, and that should be a lot of fun. Obviously, it's very, very broken in the grand scope of things, because it's literally Myr. She's one of your best units as it is once she's leveled up, and she essentially has unlimited uses from the point that you use her onwards, as long as you don't break the Dragonstone prior to being able to restore it, because, you know, obviously a certain point will come where you'll be able to attack dragon zombies, Morva, things like that, in order to restore her Dragonstone. It doesn't apply to gargoyles or death coils, by the way. They don't technically count as wyverns, but even so, you basically get an unlimited use Myr this way. And it would be up to you at that point to decide to bench her in favor of other units. I know, not the most balanced thing, but it like I said, it should prove to be pretty fun. So next up, we'll be moving on into our Knight Crest category. This will include every Cavalier and every Knight type unit, including Amelia, of course. Moving into this category, there are a couple of things to sort of, I guess, express. So first of all, my trainee units, as you're going to see, are going to have more subdued skills than most units, but they should have good effects that will last them pretty well throughout the game. Like I was saying at the beginning, units who appear earlier are going to have, I guess, more subdued skills relative to units who are later additions, but the units who have the earlier skills should also prove to be pretty good. And also, in addition to that, this category contains the only exception to the creature campaign rule, because I do want to talk about Orson within this, even though, you know, he's got his whole thing going on, but I'll get into that when I do. The first member of the Knight Crest crew, I suppose, is going to be Seth. Now, this is the skill that I think I'm most interested in, and the one that I will probably be applying to my own projects in some way. I actually kind of hate to give it away on that note, but for the sake of all, you know, Seth receives the skill Stalwart Guardian. Unit can choose to toggle Wary Fighter. That's all there is to it. If you know Wary Fighter, you know that unit and foe can only attack once in combat. This is pretty insane for a Jagan. Absolutely insane for any Jagan, but especially so for Seth, because now you don't have to worry about him eating up your kills if you just want to toggle Wary Fighter. If you don't want to use this, you simply don't have to. You toggle it, you turn it on and off, so to say, and that's essentially the draw with this skill. And to that end, let's say, for example, I don't know, maybe in a difficulty patch or in some situation where a more I guess, aged Jagan would go on to use this skill, someone like Marcus and FE6. Wary Fighter is not just good for offense, but for defense as well. So if, for example, in the case of Marcus, if he were to use this skill, you could carry him throughout the game as an essential, like, wall unit for the remainder of the game. So long as he doesn't die to one attack, you can always wall off with him. And that's the same for Seth, like, let's say in a difficulty patch, or in some crazy instance where he doesn't have enough speed, and he is actually at threat of getting doubled. I don't know how that would happen, but just in that case, you'll have to humor me. And like I was saying, in the case of Wary Fighter, it allows him to set up kills early on. He can use his Silver Lance and his Steel Sword and really any weapon that you want without worry of killing the unit, and you also don't have to pick up one of your allies to reduce his speed in order to set up kills for other units. This allows him to fulfill all of the rules of a Jagan without ever falling off, and it also gives him some additional utility in the late game. That's why I'm so big on this one. Moving on, we will be moving into Orson. Now, obviously, this is one of my favorite characters of all time, if you know me. So, I've given him a bit of an interesting skill. I've given him a skill called Her True Knight. This unit's stats are multiplied by 1.5 when the unit is at or below half health, or if he breaks a weapon. And this effect remains in place for the rest of the map once it's applied. So even if you heal him back up, or, you know, obviously give him another weapon, he'll continue to have this effect. Now, obviously, since you only get him for one map, the most likely way that you are going to apply this for yourself is by breaking one of his weapons. But then this also comes into play when he is your enemy, because you have to make sure that you defeat him without reducing him to half health, or his stats become pretty insane. And bearing in mind that he has pretty good stats as an enemy, that's going to get quite scary. He has pretty high HP when he is your enemy, so there's a good chance that you'll have to reduce him to half health before you can knock him out, or defeat him, so to say, without using, I don't know, like Ephraim with a Regan Leaf or something similar. Bearing in mind he also has that Rune Sword. He has the ability to heal himself back up if he does reach into that effect. This could make him one of the more scary bosses. You would want to essentially bait him into his Silver Lance and then wind up defeating him through alternate means. It's very interesting. I think that this one has a lot of applications both as a boss and as a playable unit, because obviously when you get him back and use him in Creature Campaign, you can simply throw a nearly broken weapon on him. He's already a pretty good unit, so you can let him attack with that, and then bam, instantly right away. His stats are 1.5 what they used to be. You know, at this point you would want to give him some stat boosters or something, probably because Creature Campaign, you know, the enemies are moderately strong in the Lagno Ruins and things of this nature, but I think it adds a very fun flair to this character as a whole. And now moving on to the 3 Cavaliers. They're the next 3 on this list. So first one obviously is going to be Franz. The People's Knight is the name of his skill. It's a very simplistic one. I think Franz is very good as it is, and he doesn't really need a lot. So this one may come off as a bit boring, but it's also really, really strong. For every support level that he gains, add plus 2% to every growth rate, for a maximum of plus 10, because you can get an A rank and a B rank, 5 supports in total. And the funny thing about this one is that if you're the type of person who likes to support grind, this is going to be the one for you, because you simply give him, I don't know, the Seth and the Gilliam A support and B support, and then bam, you know, instantly right away. He's got plus 10 to every growth rate. He's going to pop off harder than he does in most runs, and if you're a big Franz fan, you know that he pops off anyway. So quite probably becomes a better Seth by every single metric by the time he grows, but of course it's still down to RNG, so it's not necessarily a guaranteed bonus. And then of course, in addition to that, by the time you've got those supports built, he's getting up to 5 additional support bonuses, so that by itself is a big boon, and it really encourages you getting those to begin with, so it's very, very good in my opinion. Moving on to the 2 more interesting ones in my opinion, we've got Kyle first. This is probably my favorite skill in theory. I don't know if it's the best one here, but it's my favorite one in theory, I think. Maybe my second favorite in theory in this video. Maybe third? I don't know. It depends on what I think about Seth. Either way, Kyle gets Vigilant Knight. The unit has Thief Vision and Fog of War, and he negates all terrain bonuses for enemies during combat. However, the really fun part about this one is that he negates all terrain bonuses for all adjacent enemies just outright. He doesn't negate the healing or anything of Forts and Thrones, but he does negate the bonuses that they give, so the avoid, the defense, gone. You place him next to that unit doesn't have those bonuses anymore. potentially quite broken. However, I did realize while making this skill that not every boss has terrain bonuses, of course, and not every boss that can lose their terrain bonuses has more than one space available next to them. For example, Morva and Leon, they don't have really, well, Leon in the river map, they don't really have the ability for units to stand next to them other than one unit. I guess also, for example, Carlisle and Vigard on their thrones in Grado and Johanna Castle. But either way, I think that it gives Kyle the potential to become a unit who, even if he winds up kind of falling off in your roster, he still has merit to be deployed. And I don't know, I think that's pretty cool for him. I'm also just a big Kyle fan, so maybe I'm biased. Either way, we'll go ahead and move on over to Ford. Ford, the ever interesting unit, probably the unit that I love to hate the most, or is it that I hate that I love the most? One or the other. I'm a big fan of Ford. You'll see in the background footage that Ford is quite present, as it were. I recently trained him in a run, but either way, Ford has the skill Observant Knight. If this unit takes any action other than attacking, he gets plus 20 avoid or doubles the terrain bonuses, whichever is higher. And yes, that does include the defense. So he theoretically becomes quite insane if he were to, I don't know, use a torch, heal, pure water, really anything other than attacking. And since Sacred Stones is more of an enemy phase oriented game, he should be pretty good for a lot of maps. There aren't always terrain bonuses, so that's why I gave that plus 20 avoid just in general. He should become pretty solid. I would say it's like similar to Yunaka in Engage, where you can throw her down on a forest and she basically just doesn't get hit for a while. There's always a pretty good chance that Ford's speed gets decent, you know, as he levels up. At least here's hoping, right? So maybe with all things in mind, support bonuses, these bonuses, everything in play, he could become a nigh unhittable unit. I think that fits into his character very well. Likewise with Kyle, how he's super alert all the time. Ford himself is on the low-key quite alert because he's painting, he's paying attention to the battlefield and everything in between. I think it'll turn out to be a pretty fun skill, all things considered. Maybe I'm just big into Avoid, who knows. Either way, we'll go ahead and step next into Gilliam. Now this one is probably the most detailed skill that I have because I thought about this one at length on account of the fact that Gilliam is a very difficult unit to get right. Gilliam himself doesn't really deserve the disrespect he gets, in my opinion. He's not necessarily one of my favorites, but in terms of the game that he's in, he probably suffers more than any other unit. Just because he simply wakes up in the morning next to Seth and Franz, and before you know it, you don't really have a use for him. So in this case, I try to amplify his strength without making him anything too insane. I don't feel it's necessary to elevate him to a status of godhood or anything, but by adding some additional chances here and there, I think he becomes quite fun to play with. So, he gets the skill Greatest Shield. It's very much reminiscent of the General Shield, General ability Great Shield. He gets a flat 20% chance to activate Great Shield for himself and for all adjacent allies. And for all allies that have support bonuses, he gets plus 5% chance to activate it for his allies, depending on their bonuses. So, obviously, if you support him with Franz gets plus 6% to his growth rates based on, you know, his own skill, and then he gets 25 or 35% chance to activate Great Shield while standing next to Gilliam. The only downside to this, of course, is that you still have to sort of carry Gilliam around. You have to maneuver him interestingly, so to say, in order to get him to activate this skill for Franz on the front lines. Now, obviously, I knew that this was going to be a bit of an issue upon the theoretical thought that you could just promote him into Great Knight. If he's going to get Great Shield anyway, then what's the point of going General other than the stat caps? And that's why I changed it a little bit if he has to promote into Great Knight. I gave him the secondary ability of Greatest Stride. If he promotes into Great Knight, he loses the Greatest Shield and instead gains Greatest Stride. Greatest Stride is +1 movement and Super Canto, allowing him to Canto after any action. Obviously, this one's a little bit less inspired in general, but, well, I didn't mean to make the pun there, but whatever. It's a little bit less inspired, but it should be quite good for him. It pretty much turns him into the best Great Knight because it gives him the movement, the Super Canto. He has a lot going on for him. And it turns out to be quite worthwhile to use Gilliam. So I hope you'll give him a shot with this new skill, you know. And from there, we'll go ahead and move over into Amelia. She's the trainee, of course, so her skill's a little bit more subdued since, you know, obviously you're going to be using her more if you wind up using her at all. I've given her the skill Don't Slip. It's a very funny little reference to her recruit class. Don't Slip adds her weapon weight to her crit rate and accuracy. That is a hard one to say. Had a couple of takes there. It also applies luck to her crit rate at the same rate as skill, rather than luck applying in any other way. Essentially, half of her luck goes into her skill. I guess I could have just said it that way, but either way, she has a lot of crit rate, especially with her support affinity being Thunder. If you go ahead and give her some supports, she'll be throwing around crits like it's nobody's business, and she certainly won't be slipping. I thought about giving other bonuses as well in this regard, but I figured alongside Ross and Ewan, she probably already has the better one, considering that, for example, if she were to go into Great Knight or General herself, she could use Steel Axes, and those by default would have 15 crit, so that'd be kind of wild. And finally, to round out the Knight Crest category, I've got Ducel. I've given him the skill Lifelong Mentor, playing into his backstory with Ephraim, and then also his general disposition towards other characters, you know, his relationship with Amelia being that she looks up to him. Essentially, his skill grants double EXP and weapon EXP to all allies that are adjacent to him, and it allows him to S-rank all weapon types available to him. So, you know, he starts off with A rank in all of swords, lances, and axes. It's kind of just a feels-good skill more than anything. It allows him to be the only unit in Sacred Stones who can S-rank all weapons. But yeah, he gives that double experience, he gives that double weapon experience, which I think is a little bit of an underspoken thing in Sacred Stones. It'll especially come into play if you're on Ephraim route and you're using La Rochelle. I'm just saying, you can spam some torches on the boat, you know, a couple heals here and there, and suddenly you're up to that sought-after C rank so that you can use Restore staves in the Grado map with those dreaded Berserk staves. Little applications here and there like that, and a lot of other strategies surely would come into play. So yeah, that's going to be the end of the Knight Crest crew. Stepping into the Elysian webs, I've given Vanessa the skill Steady Rider, and this one's going to be very, very insane, all things considered. I might have needed to tone this one down a bit, but I have a soft spot for Vanessa, so here it is. This unit gains defense and res equal to the speed that she loses from her weapon weight. And if she's rescuing an ally, she doesn't lose any skill. So by rescuing a unit and using a Steel Lance, she kind of just casually gains a ton of defense and res and doesn't lose any skill. You do have to worry about her getting doubled by that point, but by using heavy weapons, she becomes quite a defensive beast. With a Steel Lance for quite some time, she becomes arguably better than Gilliam at tanking defensively, because she's still going to have decent speed. She's going to be losing quite a bit, but she's still going to have decent speed. Her attack's going to be high because she's going to be using a Steel Lance, and then obviously, you know, her defense and res aren't bad as they are. I think she has like base 7 defense, which is really, really good, all things considered. Really, it just comes down to her HP and her skill at that point. She's got to have good enough skill to be using that Steel Lance, which is why she won't be losing skill when she rescues someone, just the speed, and she's got to have good HP so that she can use that defense to a good metric, you know. Give her that angelic robe. Maybe she becomes the user of that angelic robe more than she was before. She was already one of the higher candidates for it. But do be careful about her speed, because this one does reward slowing down your Pegasus Knight. And also bear in mind that this effect is drastically reduced if you promote her into Wyvern Knight. You're probably more incentivized to promote her into Falcon Knight, which, you know, maybe I'm a little bit biased. Maybe you'll see in the footage in the background that she is a Falcon Knight for me. But either way, she's pretty fun like this, I'm sure. And now we've got Tana. I've given her the skill Princess's Kindness. Now this one could be a little bit insane. It definitely allows for a lot to be going on. You could probably stack a ton of bonuses onto her all of a sudden, and it would get pretty wild. But theoretically, it's just a little bit here and there for everybody. Princess's Kindness gives the B rank support bonuses to all allies, and she receives C rank support bonuses from all allies. The range is the same as the normal support ranges. So you've still got 3 tiles that you can give out the bonuses and receive bonuses. C rank bonuses aren't necessarily insane or anything, but they're pretty good when you can stack them up. 3 units nearby would give her a solid +7 to most of her essential stats. And with her own Wind Affinity, she's giving out potentially, well, She is giving out +1 attack with her wind affinity, but she's also giving out some good crit rate, some hit rate, some avoid, or actually no avoid, but crit avoid instead. She's definitely a great ally to have nearby. If you ever want just a little bit more attack or a little bit more crit rate, you can throw her down and hopefully clutch out that kill. Moving on to the promoted Pegasus Knight, the Falcon Knight Cyrene. This is probably my favorite skill in all honesty. This one, if this one's not my favorite, it's one of my more favored ones. Also, I'm a big Cyrene fan myself. I think she's probably in like my top 5 in this game in total. But either way, I've given her the skill Sister's Understanding. This unit can rescue any ally without penalty. This is also regardless of constitution, which is a pretty notable feature of this. She will be receiving +3 to the stat corresponding to the rescued ally's highest stat, which just means whoever she's picking up, their highest stat, she gets +3 to it. If she's picking up Gilliam, he's got high defense, she gets +3 defense. She's picking up Kyle, he's got high attack, she gets +3 attack. And while she's rescuing, she also gets +10 avoid. So it definitely benefits her to have a nice little backpack. But in addition to having that nice little backpack, she can drop them without ending their turn. Now, if their turn was already ended whenever you pick them up, it doesn't refresh their turn. But if they are picked up, their turn was available when you picked them up, you can drop them and their turn will still be available. Now, whether that's through a dancer or whether you carry them into the next turn, whatever the case may be, that's fine. And if you do carry them into the next turn, then their turn would refresh like normal. So I'm essentially just placing that in a way that you can't pick someone up in order to double dance for someone, if that makes sense. But with all that in mind, she has a lot going on here. Hopefully it would lend her to having a spot on your team, as she always is on mine. And then finally we have Cormag, the Wyvern lad himself. His skill is going to be very fun for those of you that like to deal high damage. He has the skill Wyvern Crash. Once per map, this unit can choose to deal effective damage to one target using any usable weapon. So, whether you've got a Steel Lance, the Vidofnir, a Killer Lance, whatever the thing is, he's dealing effective damage with that weapon. If you promote him into a Wyvern Lord, he can use swords to the same effect. As long as he can use the weapon, he'll deal effective damage with it. And then in addition to all of that, like Ephraim and Erica's skills, he can do this one additional time per map after promotion. So, you know, theoretically you get to do this quite often. You get to more or less choose one unit that dies on the map, almost guaranteed. Especially if you do wind up promoting him into Wyvern Knight and he, I don't know, procs Pierce while he's using this or something. That would be basically a one-shot on the entire cast, if I'm not mistaken. Depending on which weapon you're using, more than likely it would be, considering, you know, the 8 might of an Iron Lance would be 24, and then, you know, his own strength. Yeah, he pretty much, he would guaranteed kill anything with a Pierce crit. Pierce Wyvern Crash crit, yeah, either way. Should be a quite fun skill for the big damage dealing. Now I've gone ahead and lumped up the next category, the Orion's Bolts and the Ocean Seals into one because they have both pretty limited promotion pools, not considering Ross. I have put Ross into the Hero Crest category because 2 of his promotions do use the Hero Crest, but this one will include a couple of archers and a couple of thieves and a big muscular dude. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into this one. First up is going to be Naomi. I've given her the skill Crying in the Mirror, kind of playing off her skill, or playing off her support with Ardor and some others about the hand mirror that her mother gave her. This unit can use a Pure Water at any time for no cost. After using this Pure Water, or after using a Pure Water or any Pure Water-like effect, she gains +4 strength, which depletes at the same rate as the Pure Water. And after she promotes, she can use the Pure Water and act again, essentially allowing her to move as far as she wants, Pure Water, and then move again. It should have a pretty solid effect. There's really no reason not to. It essentially doubles her movement a lot of the time and guarantees that she has higher strength and res. It should be quite a lot of fun to make use of that to the fullest extent, especially if she is a ranger. Maybe I should have given it some offsetting factor when she was a ranger. I don't really know. It does definitely give her a lot of utility. All you've got to do is hope that her strength gets pretty good. Maybe give her that early energy ring. Next up is going to be her friend Colm. I've given him the skill True Visionary. This unit can use a torch at any time for no cost. It's like, I know what you're thinking, right? What's the use in having a torch on maps that aren't Fog of War? Sounds pretty useless, right? That's why we've gone ahead and given that another effect. After using Torch, he gets +3 strength for 2 turns, and he starts to target enemy res. You can think of it like he's throwing a ball of fire onto his enemies or something, I don't know, and he's using it to hit magically. After he promotes, he can also act again after using the Torch, gave him that effect to sort of call back to Naimi's ability, kind of incentivizes using Colm as a combat unit more than anything else. I think he's actually quite valuable as a combat unit. I think he needs to be given more of a try. Maybe I'm just biased in my own right because I recently gave him the A support with Molder in a run, and with their combined light and anima affinity, that's +3 attack and defense to both of them, and that was a lot of fun. Either way, Colm's quite a good guy. Give him a shot, especially if you ever see this skill roaming around, though I doubt you kind of ever will. Next up, moving into Innis, I have given him the ability Last Stand. I didn't want to give him something basic like bow range +1 or, I don't know, sure shot dealing additional 1.5 damage or whatever. I just wanted to give him something new, something fun, something that you don't really get to play with. This unit can choose to deploy and instantly ride a ballista with 3 to 7 range, and 3 shots. So you get to have your own ballistician essentially. However, he cannot move while he's in the ballista, so once you deploy it, that's where it stands. And once he leaves that ballista, it will no longer be usable or accessible to anybody. It can only be deployed once, and it releases him upon breaking, so on your next turn, you can feel free to move without having to step out of the ballista. It just shatters beneath him. I guess he simply constructs it with a bunch of wood lying around and throws down his bow and shoots some shots that way. I did give it 3 to 7 range, so you still have to move in on enemies that have things like bolting or berserk or things of that nature. You still kind of have to be very tactical with its usage. I should say that you can't rescue him out of it theoretically. Potentially this has some interesting effects with Cyrene's skill. Maybe she is able to pick up the ballistician because of all of this. I would theoretically have to play around with that in coding and see whether or not I liked it in gameplay or not. But you know, obviously since this is all just for fun, I don't have to bug test and stuff. Now moving on to Renak. Renak and Dozla are going to be the next two because they're the only ones left in this category, but also it's notable that they are La Rochelle's allies, and so I've given them effects that apply more particularly to monster enemies. So these two will last you on the long term, hopefully. Renak gets the ability Crafty Dog. This unit matches enemy terrain bonuses outright, so whatever they have, he's got. And if this unit does get terrain bonuses at all, not just from his own, but from theirs, he applies half of the foe's attack power to his attack. That means not just their strength or their magic, but whatever they're dealing with their weapon as well. Half of the damage he's taking is half of the damage, well, not half of the damage he's taking, half of their attack, regardless of his defense and res. Half of their attack is what he's dealing back to them. Probably going to get pretty insane. And then when he's fighting monster units, their terrain bonuses are negated. He still keeps the terrain bonuses, but they are negated. Now, bear in mind, this is not an always effect. This is only when terrain bonuses are in play, so you do have to be careful with him still. But you should be able to find terrain bonuses basically at your beck and call, right? Like you've got a lot of options in that regard. And then moving on to Dozla, I've given him the skill Rest for the Wicked, because money don't grow on trees, right? Anyway, while monster units are present on the map, this unit gains a 1.5 multiplier to his crit rate. This is obviously going to be very good in Creature Campaign. The reason I specified while monster units are on the map is because of the one map in Ephraim Route after you get him where there are monsters and humans on the same map. So that one, you know, you get to play with it right away after you get him, because there are monsters on the map that you get him, being Phantom Ship, the map right after. Then you do have to wait for a little bit, but if you keep up with your boy, he'll definitely keep up for you. That crit rate becomes very high considering his Thunder affinity and his ability to support units who do give crit rate. People like, I don't know, Myrrh, Garcia, Renak, La Rochelle with her light affinity. I think he supports Ewan, right? So he even gets light affinity from him. Essentially, the way that this would wind up working out is, let's give him, let's say, 15 crit rate by default, 30 crit rate from a killer axe, 25 crit rate from his supports. Okay, so just like that, he's got 70 crit rate. Half of that, 35. He's got 105 crit rate before even thinking about his skill. Obviously, he's going to be absolutely broken on monster maps as long as you've got him some support bonuses or killer axe or whatever. And honestly, that's for the best. Have fun. He's a one-shot master, I suppose, in that regard, especially if you get him up to using the Garm or something. Next up, we're going to be moving into the hero crests. This is a very fun category for me. I like a lot of units in this one. It's always very difficult to make proper use of all those hero crests because they don't give you enough to promote all of them, so you gotta make your choices count. I've given Ross the skill Journeyman, obviously playing off of his class name, but kind of also being a pun in its own right, because he's a man on a journey. For every promotion that he gets +5 hit, avoid, crit, and crit avoid, and when he's not using axes, his crit and avoid bonuses are doubled. So if you take him down the path of either hero or warrior, make him use some swords and bows every now and then, he gets basically perfect accuracy, pretty high avoid. He would be getting +20 avoid and hit rate just from that alone. He would have +10 crit rate by default, so it's not that bad to take this path over taking the path of Berserker. But if he does go Berserker, he has a roaming 25% crit rate. I don't know if he necessarily becomes better than Amelia, because like I said, Amelia can just throw around a steel axe with a casual 15% additional crit rate. But either way, Ross definitely has a lot going on here. He definitely gets those kills. He's a man on a journey. And like I was saying earlier, we're giving some of the earlier game units more simplistic skills. However, obviously this one's quite good. Garcia is my favorite character, so I may be very biased in doing this, but theoretically, right, it's a pretty good skill. The Warrior's Path skill gives +5% to all growth rates for every 5 levels that he gains. You level him up 5 times, he starts off at level 4. You bring him up 5 times, he's got 5 additional to his growth rates. You bring him up to level 14, 5 additional. You bring him up to level 19, bam, 15 additional to all of his growth rates. And then he promotes, obviously, and then you keep going from there. Obviously, it doesn't have as great of an effect super late, but up until that point, I mean, with his final 5 levels prior to getting this bonus, he'll be receiving pretty drastic bonuses to his growth rates. I think his HP at that point is like well over 100, so he's probably capping HP. He's probably going to be getting pretty good speed. You know, eventually he'll have a +30% to his speed, which puts him at 50%, and that'll be pretty good. That'd be pretty nice. You might actually see some speed on Garcia once you get him good solid 5-10 levels, which, you know, he could gain speed within those, so who knows? Who knows, indeed. Like I said, I'm super biased here. It's not the most insane skill. It doesn't have a ton of effects, but it turns Garcia into a unit who, both story-wise and in gameplay, turns out to be the monster that he deserves to be. Now, moving on to Marissa. I wanted to cover Marissa before I covered Joshua, because I don't know which of these two skills is better, but both of them should have roughly equal amounts of fun. I gave Marissa the skill Father's Teachings because, kind of calling back to her father as being one of the better swordmasters in all of history, assuming that what she says is the truth. This unit has a skill % chance to use lethality on any hit, not just crits. And then this unit can also choose to land a guaranteed critical hit once per map, like Cormag, Erica, and Ephraim before her. She also gains a second guaranteed crit upon promotion. You essentially would just choose this as a toggle option. Not quite a toggle, but just as an option when you go to attack. It's like, yeah, I'm going to crit this guy. GG's. I suppose I should probably add that this doesn't actually cut through hop-on guards, so I mean, there will be one unit that you can't use this on, but other than that, right, like you can have a great time with that. There's really no other circumstance in which it could possibly get canceled, other than, you know, obviously lethality isn't able to be used against like Fomortis and stuff like that. And then moving on to Joshua, I gave him one of the more fascinating skills that I think I've ever come up with. His skill is called Gambler's Fallacy. This unit has a skill % chance to deal effective damage in combat, and this unit also has a luck % chance to reverse the weapon triangle. The effects of this can be seen in the battle forecast prior to attacking. They cannot be re-rolled through RNG manipulation, is how I would have this done ideally. You can't move your cursor around, you know, RNG abuse in order to make use of this skill at greater length, but you do get to see this prior to using it. So if you want to save it, if you want to back out of that combat and use it on a different unit, you can go right ahead. The two skills, the two effects are not necessarily tied together. So if you get one, you might get the other at the same time. Sometimes you might just get the weapon triangle reversal. Sometimes you might just get the effective damage. But every now and then, you'll get this fun little effect. And when you do, as long as you're not too quickly spamming buttons, hopefully, you know, everything works out for you. It can also happen on enemy phase, so maybe don't rely on him too much for dodge tanking, because he could just reverse the weapon triangle on himself, or he could wind up using effective damage to, I don't know, wipe out an enemy and take way too much damage in the process. Who knows? He's crazy. He's a wild boy. Part of the fun with him, right? So hopefully Gambler's Fallacy is to your liking. And then finally in the Hero Crest category, I've got Garrick with the Commander's Guile ability. This one is a little bit fascinating. This unit can rally all adjacent allies and himself for +3 to each unit's respective highest stat. Similar to how Cyrene acts, whatever their highest stat is, he gets, well, they get +3 to that stat. And this effect lasts for him on 2 turns, because obviously you would have to always dance him in order to make use of that skill otherwise. Either that or rescue drop him and leave him there for enemy phase or whatever, but Garrick has a lot of con and it's really hard to rescue drop him, so I just went ahead and gave that 2 turns for him, 1 turn for the rest. Whoever he rallies, they're getting a boost to their best stat, so unless you're a unit with super high skill or luck, something good is coming out of this rally, at least hopefully. Now moving on into the Guiding Ring category, some of these skills are going to be very, very fun. I got to these skills at the later stage in making this video, so some of them may be a little bit overcooked because I was kind of playing around with them based on other unit skills, but hopefully they'll be moderately fun. I don't want them to be too broken, but I'm going to start that trend off poorly by introducing Molder's personal skill. I've called his skill Paternal Love, of course, because he's the big father of the game. Either way, his skill gives +10 hit and avoid and +5 crit and crit avoid for every 5 support levels that are active on the map, whether that is with other units or not. He can additionally stack these bonuses with his own supports and sort of play into that. And it only stacks up to 3 times, but for every 5 up to 15 total supports on the whole map, he gets these bonuses up to 3 times. So theoretically, that's +30 to his hit and avoid and +15 to his crit and crit avoid. But then also he gets his own support bonuses and his own stats to play into that. So maybe Molders are a little bit overcooked. The thing about that, in all honesty, is that these, I realized the first time I recorded this that they were overcooked, and I went back and I revised them a little bit, and this one may still be overcooked, but that's fine, right? It's Molder. Everybody likes Molder. His stats aren't going to be too insane. You're probably going to promote him at level 10 anyway, so maybe he will just become really good and not just be the best unit in the party upon promotion. But if he is, you know, who's mad about Molder being the guy, right? So next up is Natasha, taking a bit of a, I suppose, vibe from Engage here. I've given her the skill Explosive Healing because she is that battle-ready healer. She is very active and willing to put her life on the line to heal. This unit's staff uses also apply to all spaces adjacent to the target space, including herself if applicable. So she'll heal whenever she heals, she'll heal up to 5 units, including herself. Whenever she warps, she'll warp up to 5 units, including herself. Whenever she uses the rescue staff, same effect. If she uses a torch, she's torching 5 tiles, so on and so forth. The only staff that this doesn't apply to is the Latana, just because it's the whole map anyway. Well, I guess also Fortify. I guess in Fortify's case, it probably just expands the border of the staff range by 1 tile. Either way, this one's really good. Your 2 healers are going to be very competitive with one another. You're going to want to make sure that you pick a favorite. I mean, at this point, you may just use both of them, right? Like, you may just use Natasha on the long term, get her up to warp rank, and then warp 5 units anyway. Maybe that's the LTZ strat or something, but both of your healers very, very good this way. Molder's better in combat, she's better in healing. I think it fits their characters pretty decently. And then here's a very fun one. Obviously, La Rochelle had to have something kind of goofy. She's already a really good unit. She's already really fun. I've given her the skill Beat You Senseless. This unit can use any type of weapon at all against monsters and Innis. Magic rank is equal to her staff rank, excluding S-rank tomes I should have added, while physical weapon rank is equal to half of her staff rank. So if she's got S rank in staves, she can essentially use up to maximum of C rank physical weapons. This is only against monster class units, but it should be pretty fun to see Lara Shell throwing around axes and lances and shooting with bows, using any type of magic under the sun. She can do just about anything with this as long as the weapon rank permits. Like I said, she can't use any S rank weapon. That's the only caveat to this. So if you want her to have an alternate S rank weapon, you should just go ahead and give her that S rank weapon and get her there anyway, which, you know, she can only do that with Anima or Light as it is, but she'll have a full range of options regardless of what she winds up doing. It's mostly just a funny one, in all honesty. It is notable for being also effective against, or you can also do this to Innis. Not that you can just attack him at any time you want, of course. The only way that this comes into play is if you're playing specifically in Link Arena, but whatever, right? Like, it doesn't particularly matter. It's just very funny. Now, here is Ardor. I've given Ardor an interesting ability, although his is probably the most undercooked of them all. I thought about going back and changing this one a bit, and in hindsight, I still might want to, but for now, what I've got him with is that he has the skill Light Guardian. This unit can place a light rune that lasts for 3 turns, plus 1 light rune after promotion. I think if I were to go back and revise this one according to how I originally wanted it, I had it so that he could place 2 light runes, and then a 3rd one upon promotion. And maybe it would be a good idea to, upon promotion, also allow him to Gale Force after placing these, in a similar vein to Nami and Colm, because he's that kind of early game unit. I think he deserves something of that sort. But alas, I've already edited the video, and therefore he is stuck with this one on screen. But, you know, bearing in mind post-commentary production, or post-production commentary, I would have given him 2 light runes, a 3rd upon promotion, and during promotion he can probably Gale Force off of light runing. I think that'd be nice and fun for him, and it definitely allows a lot of utility. Next up is Loot. Now this one's an interesting one because it's probably the worst skill, quote unquote, just because it doesn't actually add to her abilities that much. It's more or less just a flavor pick. I've given her the Endless Study ability, a 5% chance per weapon level increase. That unit gains dark magic weapon level instead. When using the dark magic, which she has to get to D rank in order to use Flux to begin with, when she uses dark magic, she gains +5 constitution during combat, so hopefully it doesn't weigh her down too much, but this does allow her to be the only sage in the game who can use every weapon type. It also allows her to essentially, upon promotion to Mage Knight, be a mounted druid, more or less, because of the dark magic and the anima magic. So, theoretically, offers you an alternate dark magic user. We're probably not always using Null for combat. We're probably not always making you a dark magic user. So this is your other option for dark magic without using the enemy control glitch. And here is Null. The Looming Shade ability is what I've given him. This one could be considered pretty good. This unit has a 20% chance to spawn a Phantom after attacking or healing, and this can stack with the already summoned Phantom that he has if he goes into the Summoner class. It's not restricted to the Summoner class. He can do this while he's either a Druid or a Shaman, but if you do go Summoner, he can theoretically have 2 Phantoms active at once. Hopefully, a moderately fun ability for him. Next up is Saleh. Unfortunately for him, his only Fire Emblem Heroes art is a Springtime alt. I probably could have just used his base Sacred Stones art, but yeah, I decided not to. So here he is. Poor Saleh. He deserves better. Either way, his skill is Teach by Example. When this unit attacks or heals, adjacent allies receive +3 speed that depletes at 1 point per turn, similar to a Pure Water. It's not the craziest skill. He's a pretty good unit as it is, but he can give out some additional speed. You can think of using the heal staff with him as being like a, plus speed staff. It also applies to units adjacent to him, so you could theoretically +4 speed people, or +3 speed to 4 people. And that definitely has its applications. I don't know why my threshold was +3 for all of these, but I feel like that's a good number that doesn't really turn the tides by necessity. You already have to have good speed to double. He's already a pretty good unit, so his skill wasn't particularly necessary to go super ham on. But, you know, hopefully it's nice and fun for him. And our final trainee is Ewan. Well, also our final guiding ring user is Ewan. I've given him the skill Learn by Practice to sort of reflect off of Saleh's Teach by Example skill. So Ewan's skill gives him the ability to deal 1.5 times damage and gain 1.5 times weapon experience at the cost of expending 2 weapon uses per attack. It isn't the most insane skill, but it does give him the ability to really crush out some extra damage when needed. Early on, it helps him get the kills that he needs to get, and later on, it potentially makes some tomes deal some ridiculous damage. Obviously, it hurts to have to use 2 times weapon uses on things like legendary tomes, but if you theoretically needed to, you could always use him to clutch out that little bit of extra damage that you need. And that will be the end of all of the base default playable characters. We're now going to be moving into the creature campaign category. A lot of these characters are bosses in the main game, and a lot of these characters are very strong in the late game. So the way that I've structured their skills is that we're just going to go ham. We're going to have fun. We're going to figure these out from the perspective of units who both you have to fight with these skills in effect, and you have to deal with, and you get to play with them in the post game. By the time that the post game has rolled around, if you're still playing, you're just playing for fun, right? There's no big metric that you're going for. You're just playing the game because you want to. So some of these skills are going to be wild. They're going to be very fun to play with, and we'll start with Kalak. I've given Kalak the skill King's Gambit. In combat versus promoted units, this unit deals 2 times effective damage. Just straight up. That's just how it is. By the time that you fight him for the first time, there's a good chance that you have a couple of non-promoted units, and there's a good chance that you've got a couple of promoted units. He's going to be hitting all of them really hard one way or another, so try not to get hit, I guess. It definitely hurts to get hit with a steel axe that's dealing 2 times effective damage. Hopefully you can survive. Hopefully you have enough speed to not get destroyed by him. But either way, he himself, very, very good in both as a boss and in the late game, because by the time that you get to creature campaign, if you're walking around the Lagdo ruins, promoted units are abound. They're everywhere, and non-promoted units would probably fold to him anyway. So by every metric, he may very well replace like Garrick or somebody on your team. Next up is one that's a bit reminiscent of Orson, but in itself quite crazy, also quite scary in theory. So Valter, he gets the ability Crazed Fever. This unit can choose to berserk himself for 3 turns. This berserk effect cannot be restored by means other than waiting it out, because it's self-inflicted. It's not a mindset thing. It's not an affliction. He's doing it to himself. It's nothing that can be cured. It's Valter. So while he's berserked and for the rest of the map afterwards, this unit's stats are multiplied by 1.5. So after he gets out of the berserk state, you can use him again. He's got 1.5 times to all of his stats, and that should prove to be a lot of fun. However, if this unit defeats a non-monster ally, his stats are doubled for the rest of the map. So with this skill, in his own map, he definitely becomes very scary all of a sudden. So then the fun part also of this whole thing comes into play, and I should note that this last sentence is only applicable when he's playable on your side. I wouldn't give this to him as a boss, because if he simply showed up, threw a spear at one of his wyverns next to him at the start of the Scorched Sand map, and then just had double stats, most players wouldn't be able to defeat him. But I will go ahead and say he can berserk himself at will in that map. He can do what he wants while he's berserked, but only when he's playable does this last line come into effect. If he defeats one of your allies, his stats are doubled for the rest of the map. So if you're willing to sacrifice one of your units for whatever reason, you have a doubly powerful Valter. You have a unit who probably has somewhere in the ballpark of like a little bit over 40 speed, probably a little bit close to 40 attack. He's definitely very broken. There's definitely no question about that if this were to occur. That said, you know, obviously it doesn't apply to phantoms, it doesn't apply to monsters, so you have to lose an ally for that to kick in, but 1.5 times stats is pretty good, especially as a Wyvern Knight. Moving on to poor old Glenn, who still doesn't have any Fire Emblem Heroes art, despite very much so deserving it. I've given him the skill Brothers Camaraderie. So since you get him so late, at this point, you've already got your supports built. You've already got some insane units with some insane abilities built up. I needed to give him something pretty good, and so I think that I have. This unit gives and gains A-rank support bonuses from all allies except for Walter, probably for obvious reasons, and this unit can rescue without penalty. Similar to Cyrene, except that he doesn't, he can't just rescue anybody, and he doesn't get bonuses from rescuing. He can just rescue without issue. And his bonuses, his A-rank support bonuses, that is, they're doubled with Cormag, Ducel, Selena, and Erica, all for story-related reasons. There's a good chance that you're probably using Cormag by this point. Erica's still pretty solid, though she's probably fallen off given the choice by Creature Campaign. But either way, he should be a pretty fun unit, all things considered. A-rank support bonuses with his Wind Affinity are definitely nothing to be scoffed at, especially if taking into consideration the 3 range. There's an argument that he's the best character in the game once you get him because of that, because in theory you could give him 100% crit rate from stacking A-rank supports for 3 tiles out from him, but you would have to intentionally do that, and when you're not intentionally doing that, you've probably got a solid 2 to 4 allies around, so you're getting really good bonuses regardless from that. Next up is Selena, who was just relevant in Glenn's. Hopefully you'll see why she is worth having around. I've given her the skill His Majesty's Reach, playing off her loyalty to Emperor Regard. Her tomes and staves have +1 range. She can use Canto after any action, being Super Canto. Her healing restores all status effects, except for Valter's Berserk. And when she's attacking from more than 2 range, she gets +15 crit. She's not really anything insane. Just across the board, she's pretty good. By this point, +1 range is still very useful. I mean, you can't really go wrong with 3 range in GBA Fire Emblem, short of, like, I don't know, using the longbow with Naomi and then getting doubled because she gets weighed down too much or something. Selena is just an all-around good unit. You can't really go wrong with deploying her for any reason whatsoever. Then we get to Reeve, the evil bishop himself. His skill is quite fun. I've given him Fiend's Call. This unit gains the ability to summon either red or blue summons. You do get to choose. It's not just random. But summons are from the unpromoted monster pool instead of being just phantoms. He can summon revenants, bone walkers, things of this nature. He doesn't get the ability to summon Draco zombies or promoted enemies, but the unpromoted ones, surely. And the summons that he drops, or the summons that he brings about that are red, will drop their weapons after being defeated. You can also act again after summoning, so if you just wanted to theoretically sit there and infinitely farm weapons, you definitely could do that. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because since they're unpromoted, they can't use anything higher than like C rank most of the time. I think given the option to design that pool of monsters that he would spawn, I'd probably make it so that, yeah, more than likely, nothing above C rank would spawn. Maybe even nothing above D rank at that point, but who knows. It's not about balance, it's about fun, so. And then for finishing the Tower of Valna, you get Ismare, Joshua's mom, of course. I wanted her to be like the ultimate sword master, something that's just a lot of fun to throw down and attack. She can attack at 1 to 2 range with all swords, she doesn't deplete sword durability, and she doesn't suffer from halved strength while using magic swords like the Light Rune, Rude Sword, and Wind Sword, which she comes with. So, have a fantastic time with that Wind Sword. Play with it to your heart's content. That is the only one that you get, apart from treasure drops, because you can't buy them. So, if you're going to have that fun with that Wind Sword, make sure to use it with her. I guess you can use it on anybody. Even if the weapon's only got 1 weapon use left, she can make use of it without breaking it. So, she is in all likelihood not going to replace any of the Sword Masters that you've already gotten by this point, but she has a pretty unique ability. A pretty unique capability, I should say. And she should prove to be pretty cool. And then from playing some more into the Lagdo Ruins, you get Aiden, the King of Frelia. Being that he is the Venerable Sage King, as described by the game's story, I've given him the skill Venerable Strategist, kind of playing off of his demeanor and his tact, I suppose, with regard to how he handles the events of the story. He's quite a powerful individual, despite the fact that he constantly gets wrecked by everyone around him. He definitely plays the role of the strategist. He doesn't need to be in combat a lot, but when he is in combat, he's got some pretty cool little effects. This unit can rally all stats for +2. That is standard rally range as I've described it so far, just being adjacent. I didn't include that there for some reason. But either way, his bow range is also increased by 1. I gave him that instead of giving it to Innis, and it has a 20% chance to apply a random status effect to foe after combat. So sleep, berserk, stone, whatever the case may be. Silence, even though it's probably not going to come in handy too much. You kind of get to play around with that some. If nothing else, it gives you an option for good chip range, or for good chip damage, and then every now and then you'll get a fun little effect to play around, so maybe it's worth it to deploy him a little bit. Second to last here, for clearing the Lagdo ruins, you get access to Fado, Erica, and Ephraim's father. As I said at the very beginning of the video, we're playing off that RES naming theme, and with those two being the Restoration King and Queen in their epilogues, he is the Restoration Heart. At least that's his skill. He has a strength % chance to repair He has a strength % chance to repair the last used physical weapon to full uses after combat, and a luck % chance to restore the item in his lowest item slot back to full uses. He is a walking RNG Hammer's staff. Essentially what I'm going for with him is that by the time you have him unlocked, you only have 2 runs of the Lagdo ruins left before you've unlocked all of the characters, assuming that you've already cleared Balni. It's 3 times to get Selena. So, in order to do that, in order to clear that place 2 more times, I'm giving you a unit who could theoretically repair your legendary weapons back to full without the use of a Hammer's staff, which, you know, funnily enough, Leon carries one of those too, but it doesn't particularly matter because by the time you get him, you've already cleared the entirety of everything in the game that there is to clear. So, hopefully Fado allows you to have your fun with your legendary weapons for those 2 last runs of the Lagdo ruins. And, you know, he's not all that bad of a unit himself. He's a general, he's got his own, you know, merits and whatnot, so maybe he's nice and fun. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we have Leon. So what is the ultimate reward for clearing this game? What is the thing that I would give you for unlocking every character, theoretically? Well, I would give you the Forsaken Path ability. This unit's summon ability is the same as the Demon King's summons, and allied summons can now trade with other units while he's present on the map, regardless of whether they are Reeves or Null's or his own or Ewan's, whatever. You now have unpromoted enemies, unpromoted monsters, phantoms, and through Leon promoted monsters up to and including Draco zombies who can trade their weapons over to you. So, now you get to do whatever you want, basically at all times. You've unlocked every single capability for everything in the game by the time you've got Leon, so at that point, you've got free control of the game. You can do just about anything you want, and it's always a lot of fun to see that Demon King summon ability in action. You obviously have a lot of units on the map. You could use it more than once consecutively, so you do have to defeat, or all of the units that you do summon have to be defeated before you can summon more of them. But you get to have your fun. You get to do all the summoning that you want, and I don't know. That's really about all that's left by the time you've got him, so do whatever you want by that point, right? And I suppose that will be the end of this video. I appreciate you for watching. This one was a lot of fun. Like I said, make sure to watch Danny Doyle's video, linked in the description, upcoming soon in the end card, and maybe if I remember, it'll be up here in the corner again. I hope I remember that. It's going to be a long one to edit, but it's fine. It'll be up there probably, maybe. If not, just check out the end card and we'll get that set up for you. Or, you know, obviously the description. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any skills that you would recommend, if you have any suggestions to improve my skills, if you think Danny did a better job than me in designing some skills, please let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see more of these videos where I talk more and don't just play the game, also let me know, because I have never done one of these before and I don't know if I want to continue to do them. I don't know. They're a lot of work, but it's fine as long as they're fun. If you guys like them, do let me know. Hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future content, whether it's this type of video or more standard gameplay. And I suppose until next time, I'll see you later.